it's Lucy from My Crazy Craft Life, and I'm here today making a card similar to this. I made this one yesterday, and then after I kind of worked through all of the kinks, I made a second one. And the decorations are a little bit different, but the card itself is pretty much the same. So I thought I would put up this video to kind of walk through how I made this card. So the die I used to make the card, which makes the picture change, is from Fawn. It's a die called the Magic Picture Changer. I do not have the add-on. The add-on includes a little frame to go over the whole piece and then another little piece for the tab. So I just have, this was everything that comes with the actual die for the Magic Picture Changer. So I decided that it would be really cool to make this using the Kindred stamp set, Electrifying. And I thought it would be super cute to use the two different girl images on there, one before and one after, and I think it worked out perfectly. Now, there's a couple things with this that you need to make sure. One, when you stamp the image, you want to make sure that that piece, the inside piece, is going to be long enough. So wherever you stamp it on your paper, you want to make sure that you give it enough room for that whole piece to be there. And then the same thing with the other set, with whichever the picture. Now, the picture that you're going to make with the long piece of the die set, that is the one that's going to be on the front, or when you have the picture changer kind of in neutral. And then when you pull out the picture changer, that's the shorter one. That's the one that's going to be on the inside. So that's this one that I'm stamping now. Now, the before of the electrifying set for the little female image is a digital stamp. So I actually just had to print that one out. So that's why I'm not stamping that one. And then that one I stamped. So I'm going to do some Copic coloring with this, and I'm going to speed up that, and I'm going to speed up the parts kind of where I just decorate it, just because I wanted to make sure that making the actual picture changer portion of the card was in real time, so that you can kind of see how that all went down, and otherwise the video would be over an hour long, so I don't think we all need that. But for the sentiments, I used a couple different stamp sets. I used a My Sentiments Exactly stamp set called Vintage Family for the mom, and then a classic I used from the Kindred stamp set. And as I'm sitting here looking at it, I see they have a Your that I could have used from that, but instead I've pulled one out, the UR, from a Hampton art set called Coloring Clear Stamps. It doesn't really give a specific name as to what it is. And for the pull here, I used Fawn stamp push here, that stamp set that has all of that information in there. So those were the stamps that I used to create the sentiment on this card. And now we are just done with the coloring, so we're going to get to the stamp. So you see how that is the piece that's going to go on the inside, or the second picture when you pull up. And you're going to want to line that up to what you want in that frame. Now, I'm not worried about the feet on there because they are going to be covered up with the little frame that comes with this, so I wasn't worried that that was in there. But if you're not going to put the frame on this, which I don't know exactly why you wouldn't, but I'm sure there's a reason somebody can figure out, then you would want to make sure that you don't have anything hanging out there. But that's the same thing with the other little girl, the first image, so that longer piece there on that first image. So that's going to be kind of the pocket, that longer piece. And it actually scores everything. So once you die cut it, you see how it has those flaps? Those flaps are actually going to slide into those pieces on that second piece of the die that was die cut, I mean, from there. Now, one thing to make this kind of move better and make sure that it doesn't kind of get stuck on itself, if you use your embossing, the that little chalky pad that you use for when you emboss things to make sure nothing sticks on there, that works really, really well. And you'll see I use it a couple times on here because I really want to make sure that this slides really well. On the first card I didn't do this as much, just a little bit I did, and I realized how much it really does make a big difference now that I made this next card. The other thing I found out is that 80-pound cardstock seems to work better than the thicker 110-pound cardstock with this. It just doesn't seem to catch as much, because the first one I did, I used the 110-pound, and for the second one I used the 80-pound. The other thing that works really, really good is if you have the 1/8 of an inch score tape, because the little score lines and the flaps for the side, so you see those little lines there, it actually scores, and I know it's hard to see on the thing, but there are score lines there, and you're going to want to fold them over, and that's like about 1/4 of an inch. So if you have 1/8 of an inch score tape, it works really well. I know you can do it with obviously any other type of, you know, liquid glue or something, but you're going to have to really make sure that you wait for it to dry, because you can't have the sliding piece get stuck in there. So you want to make sure that whatever you're using, that none of the stickiness is going to come out, because what you're kind of doing is making a rail where it's going to slide back and forth, and that's kind of what's going to keep it in place, to make sure that when you're pulling it in and out, it doesn't go all wonky on you, and it just goes straight in and out. So once you fold over those score lines, you want to make sure you use your bone folder or something to really press down and get a nice crisp line with that after you, like I said, fold over those score lines. Then you're going to put, like I said, the tape, and you want to make sure that it stays on that tab, because like I said, you do not want it to be anywhere in the track where the card's going to be going up and down through there. So that's really, really important, because on the first one I didn't do it quite so well, so that's why I'm kind of making this such a thing, because you want to make sure that you get it straight and you get everything in there correctly. And then you're going to add your score tape to each of those flaps, and you're also going to put one on the very bottom of the card. And again, you want to make sure that it doesn't go too high up, because even though the slits are pretty high up, where the card's going to go up and down will actually come much further down than where you just see the slits. So you don't want the tape or glue or anything to be more than 1/4 of an inch off of that bottom, and the bottom portion of the card, because you're going to or pocket, because you're actually going to fold that over, and then that's going to make that little pocket in there, and then that'll just make sure by putting the score tape on the very bottom of it, that it will not, you know, kind of look wonky or stick out if it goes in a little bit too far or anything like that, because it will actually stop it. So right there on the bottom, like I said, you want to get it as close to the bottom as you possibly can, so that you don't have any issues with the card. Now, the other thing that you can do right now that I didn't do here, but it makes sense, is on the other side of those flaps, the scored little flaps, those 1/4 inch ones, you can actually put a piece of score tape on that side of it, on both sides, because one, you're going to push down onto the little pocket area itself, and that's going to make the track for the other piece to slide up and down in, and then when you put the card together, you're going to tape down the sides as well. And like I said, you want to make sure that none of that is going to be interfering with the sliding mechanism part of the card, or part of the little pocket that you're putting there. So here I'm just doing the inside of it to make the track, and that's what that is. And like I said, you want to make sure that that's really good and down, so that the card doesn't kind of slip into it. The portion that's going to be sliding, you don't want it to be able to slip into it. Now, putting this together is actually pretty simple. See right there, I was just trying to make sure, I wanted to make sure that everything was right and it was sliding properly back and forth, and that was good. So when you put this together, you're going to stick that piece in there, in the little slot that the die made for you. And then each of those, all 4 of those pieces from the first image, or that's the first picture that you're going to see, is going to slide into kind of its coordinating slot in the second piece. So there's 4 slits that are not connected, and then there are 4 on the second piece that are, connected, and you're just going to push it kind of in each one. So the first one and the first one, the second one and the second one, the third one and the third one, the fourth one and the fourth one. And once you get all of those in there, that's what's going to make the slider portion. And if you use the duster thing for the embossing, that, like, kind of when it's wonky like that, it will actually work too, because it's kind of separating the pieces out, and that's a really good time to use that. So this, I was just making sure, and yep, it worked perfectly. So I was very excited about that. And like I said, using that embossing powder is a big thing to make sure that it slides really easily and really well. Now, when you tape this down, you do want to make sure that you don't accidentally get that second piece or that sliding part of the card in or anywhere around the tape that you're going to be putting on there, or the glue, or whatever you're actually using to glue that down. So you want to make sure that it's not going to be touching that. Then once you get all of the tape on and you tape down all of the pieces, or I mean tape down all of the sides, not the pieces, there's only one piece there, but you tape down the sides of it, that's then going to make your little pocket, and that's what's going to have the picture changer on there. Now, I left mine in the upright position, meaning that I pulled it so the second picture was actually out, so I didn't have any issues with anything getting in the way of what I was doing. And I wanted to make sure that the picture, or I mean that nothing got onto the tape, so that it had no problem sliding and whatnot. So if I can get this piece of backing off, I will close that up. And like I said, scoring this really well is a big thing too. You want to make sure that everything is scored well, so that when you're closing it, everything kind of lines up just the way it's supposed to. So there is the finished little pocket, and that's what it's going to be. So pretty simple, right? I mean, this die just makes it super simple. I mean, how much easier could we possibly make it, or could they make it for us? I think it just worked out so well, and it was really simple. I get excited when I find these dies that can make interactive cards like this, and that are pretty simple to make. So there you see I'm using a lot of the embossing powder to make sure that it slides in and out really nicely and easily, and it does. It goes really nicely with this one. So the next steps after this is, these are the other 2 pieces that are in it. So you have your 2 pieces to make your pocket, and then the little slider portion to make the second picture, and then the little frame that's going to go around it, and then that little piece makes the tab that you're going to put on top of the tab, and that's going to make sure that the piece doesn't go down too far, and it's also going to tell the person to, hey, pull this up. Now that comes with a little arrow, and that's what I used on the first card, but the second one I actually used the pull here. So those were some papers that I made with the gel press, and I just thought they would kind of be kind of cool for a background for this one. I was trying to pick colors that this one's from my mother-in-law, and I was trying to pick colors that she likes, and blues and purples are her favorite colors. And then I did end up deciding to change that green, because I thought that green was a bit much after I was going through. I thought it would be cool with the accent, but I think the green and purple is what was throwing me. But I really liked that purple, and so I wanted that to be part of it. So I ended up using blue, and blue's her favorite color anyway, her absolute favorite, so I thought that would work better. But now, like I said before, I don't have the attachment or the additional add-on for this die, so I decided to make my own. So what I did was, the little pocket itself is 4 inches by 3 inches. So if you make just a rectangle piece of cardstock in that size, you will be able to cover it. And then the picture frame, the inside of the picture frame, or the little frame that's going to go around the images that you cut out, or yeah, that you cut out, I guess, with the die, is a little bit, it's about 1 3/4 inches square. So if you make the square on the inside of that kind of right directly smack dab in the middle, and you make it a 2-inch square, you will be able to do that. Now I did it, I don't know what I was thinking, but I did it with my paper trimmer and I had to line it up and it was kind of a pain in the butt. But if I did this again, I would just cut it off with an X-Acto knife, you know, draw a square in the center of it and cut it out and be done with it, because that would have been much easier to do than what I was trying to do. Now I did heat emboss the pull me, or pull here, onto the little image, and you see that little arrow? That's the part, you can either put it on that side so that the arrow kind of points up, or like I said, I put this the other way. And as much as I was using my embossing powder with everything else, making sure that this slid properly, I did not use my embossing powder when I was actually heat embossing, so I had to sit there and play with that for a minute. Now, one of the things that you want to make really sure when you're putting down these, the little frames that are going over it, whether you're using the big one or you're using the smaller one, you only put adhesive on kind of the corners of it, especially that little one, because otherwise it'll mess up the how the picture slides. So you only put it on the very corners of the frame, and on the larger frame to cover the whole piece, you can put a little bit kind of towards the center, top and bottom of there. But you, like I said, you want to be really careful that you don't end up putting adhesive somewhere that it's not going to allow the thing to move up and down, the picture changer to move up and down. Now, I found using 2 pieces of fun foam actually worked better than just doing one. It was easier to pull up on the tab and to push down, and the card itself, like the base of the card, didn't get in the way when you did that. So I used 2 pieces of fun foam, and I would guess to mail this you would have to use something else. You know, not just a regular card. You wouldn't be able to put it through the mail like that. So I stamped the mom on the top there, and then UR, and then when you pull up the tab is when I stamped the A Classic. A Classic is actually one piece, and I cut it so that I could fit it on that tab, because otherwise it wasn't going to fit on the tab. And then here, like I said, I was just decorating it, deciding what I wanted to do. I have all of that whole box is pieces from, what are those little peg things that you were able to make stuff with? I melted them all down like beads. I melted them all down in a toaster oven outside. It smells really, really badly, so if you decide that you want to do that, but to kind of make my own enamel dots, use like a toaster oven or use something outside or somewhere you have a lot of ventilation, because it, like I said, it smelled horribly. But I mean, it was pretty cool, but I made so many of them, I don't think I'll ever use that many of them in my whole life. And I used every color I could possibly buy because I just thought it was so cool when I did that. But there we go. That is the card, and I had so much fun making these, and I hope you enjoyed the video. I was just there making sure that that stayed on there because it kept coming off and opening with just the adhesive, and I didn't want a problem there. So that's it. Those are the 2 cards that I made, the one I made first and then the one that I made on this video. I hope you enjoyed it, and if you have any questions, feel free to leave me a comment. Thank you. Take care.